Oh yeah. I like that. That's a nice. I just get high enough that it's past the gate. There we go. That should be good, right? Turn myself up a little bit, maybe. Turn this up a little bit. There we go. Ooh. Ooh, that sounds sexy. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Welcome everybody to Horsehead Weekly. This is week number 5 of the Horsehead Weekly. Thank you guys all for showing up. Yeah. So lots happened over the last 2 weeks. Lots of trades, a lot of people moving around. I actually had everything ready to go last week, but never actually got around to making the thing. But, you know, that happens sometimes. Life comes at you fast and you don't know what's coming. And that's just how it goes. So, let's just jump right into it. Horsehead Weekly, week number 5. Table slapping good. Let's make it happen. And as always, like life coming at you fast, sometimes you got to go fast, and that is what we're doing today. We're going to go fast. We got a lot to cover because we got to get past the last 2 weeks. So let's start up by going back in time to last week. And last week was a good week. You know, it wasn't one of those weeks where too many people got screwed over. But at the same time, two people did get a little. One person got really screwed. One person got a little bit screwed. So Tyler came into week number 3 at 0-2, hung up 157 points, third highest on the week, or fourth highest on the week rather, behind only Nick, myself, and Mike, and he lost. Fourth highest points scored, manages to lose. That's really rough. Fifth highest points scored, Malcolm the Chicken, aka Matty S, also was unable to finish it. Just some bad luck from those teams to not run in anybody who was, you know, not really feeling it that week. But at the same time, the person who won with the least number of points, you know, only the 7th least number of points, so it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like some of those weeks before. It was like the top 4 played each other, the bottom 4 played each other, and the middle 4 played each other. So you're just sitting there, just scratching your head as somebody who got handed a loss, saying, well, I could have beaten literally 90% of the league. Sadly, that didn't happen. Good thing that, luckily, rather, that didn't happen. But I still feel very bad for Tyler, who ended up falling to me by only 6 points after putting up an absolutely just fantastic number of points. Also, it's fun to see the Unlimited Power hand Bacchus from the Dead, third straight loss. Well, the team name is different now. It is now Team Poo Poo. And if you look at the point numbers, we have 160.6 to 155.1. They didn't account for stat corrections when they make that. So once they make that recap, they just slap it on the week and say, we're not changing anything. So could be interesting to see, like, you know, Dewey defeats Truman or something like that type situation, where somebody can, you know, maybe there's a stat change that changes with the victor in a game and causes that to be different. I don't know. Could be interesting thing to think about. I don't know why I'm rambling about it. I always say got to go fast, and then I spend 90% of the show rambling to myself about cool things that pop in my head. But you know what? You guys are here. You're stuck with me, and this is, unless somebody else wants to make a Twitch show about the Fantasy Football League, you guys got to deal with it. So that was last week. Now let's get to last week. And this is all before stat corrections. Remember, stat corrections will go into effect at like 3 a.m. or something like that. So if it was a very, very close game, something like Damn Daniel and Poo Poo, they're decently. Yeah, that's a good reference. So yeah, so it's possible. It is possible that Tyler will lose enough points and Malcolm will gain enough points that Malcolm's at 2-2 and Tyler's at 0-4. It could happen. I don't think it'll happen, but it could happen. So just be aware of that for this week. But for now, I'm going off the assumption that these numbers are correct. at least for who is winning, losing, and getting strikes and everything. And because stat corrections are so prevalent on Yahoo, I don't know if it's who does their stats or whatever's going on. It's kind of stupid and crazy, but yeah. So I'm done. I'm done with the roto until after Thursday, because I'm sick and tired of sitting down doing all the roto numbers, and then having them be like, oh, but here's like 90% of the defensive players getting a stat correction, and I'm just like, oh, cool. Why'd I even fucking bother? And then on the other hand, you have some offensive players getting stat corrections too. Not as prevalent, but it's like 10%, and I have to go through and I have to double check every single stat correction against people. It's an absolute mess. I hate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to stick with this for now, and we're going to deal with it later. So for last week, again, I think this was probably the most fair week, with only one person being in the top half that got a loss, and that was Malcolm. He wasn't in the top half by much. He only beat the Farm Upstate, aka Doug, by 6 points, less than 6 points. So it's not like he was super far ahead. So, that's fine. Sixth place can get a loss. I'm not going to worry about it. But this was probably the most fair week we've had so far. But I don't think this is gonna be a trend that's gonna develop where the last 2 weeks where it was decently even. I don't think that's how it's gonna work out. But what we have going on right now after these last 2 weeks is these standings. We have myself atop of Skullhouse, followed up very closely by Jerry and Doug, both at 2-2, and both yet to play me in the first set of round robins in the division. So a lot can change there still. Another very close division down here with Hoop, Salty, and Damn Daniel. Those are, of course, Kathy's kids, Matt, James, and Malcolm. So those guys are all very close. Only one match has been had for the divisional standings. The Insiders, not looking great this season so far, but that it has to happen to somebody. Only one team at 500 and the other two below 500. However, it is important to note I am the Walrus, who I believe is Matt M. He is 0-2 in the division so far, so he actually should be at the bottom, behind Average Jones. That's just the way it works, and that's how I'm going to make the standings work at the end of the season if I have to force it, because the tiebreakers are first head-to-head against people. The first tiebreaker is, are you tied with a divisional opponent? If you're tied with a divisional opponent, guess what? Too bad, so sad. You end up getting put in the so if you're tied with a divisional opponent, it's head-to-head tiebreakers into divisional record, into points for, stuff like that. And all tiebreakers are broken first inside the division, like they are in the NFL. So let's say these were the final standings. Hoop, there it is, and Mr. Salty, they're both tied. So it would get broken down to, of course this is fine for you, Matt. So it would get broken down to, okay, Hoop, there it is, has a better divisional record, so they would win the tiebreaker. So that's how it would look, just so everybody can understand what I'm going to do eventually, if I have to just tell Yahoo to shut up and do what I say. And then finally in the Outsiders, they have the lone undefeated team, who managed to make it through 4 weeks without a loss, and the new guy, Sean. And then Mike is in second place at 3-1. And finally we have Tyler at 9th at 1-3, completely undeserved, but still at 9th at 1-3. So that's what's going on in the standings right now. So that's some important stuff to note. But standings only mean so much. We now have the Eliminator, and as you might notice, your eyes might be drawn down to the bottom of the screen with Jerry, Nick, and Matt M all being eliminated this week. Nick's been on a bit of a roller coaster, got to point that out. 3 strikes in 4 weeks. The week he didn't get a strike, he scored more points than anybody else that week. I guess that's just how Nick wanted to do it. He wanted to put all of his points into week 3 so we can get that one win. So good for you, Nick. Congratulations on that week 3 win. But your team hasn't done anything else before or after that, and thus you've been eliminated. Matt M, put up a couple good fights. Being pretty close to not getting a strike a few times, but never was quite able to get over that hump, and thus he's been eliminated. And Jerry, poor Jerry, he's had it the roughest. In 2 different weeks, he was given a strike by a total of less than 4 points. Right on the cusp. Now, as I said before, stat corrections are live. They can change this. So let's say tomorrow we wake up, Dave M is down at 117. Boom! Suddenly Dave M has his first strike. Jerry's risen from the dead. He's back alive, and we have our Dewey defeats Truman moment because Horsehead is on Yahoo, who doesn't understand how stat corrections work, and it's annoying because they save it for literally for what are they doing? Who's sitting in the back end just being like, geez, I guess I'm gonna wait until Thursday to do this. It's dumb, it's stupid, I hate it. But anyways, so as of right now, we are down. If this stands, we are down to 9 teams alive, which means for at least one more week, we will be giving out 4 strikes. As from 9 to 12, you get 4 strikes. It's basically a third of the league should get a strike. So 4 people will get a strike tomorrow, or next week rather, and that is James and Malcolm both being on the chopping block to be the next person eliminated, with Mark, which is me, Doug, and Matt S. all having 1 strike from just kind of having one bad game, and then Mike, Tyler, Sean, and Dave M. all being strikeless. But something to note, Mike is the only team not to finish in the bottom, not 4, but even the bottom 5. His worst week, he finished actually in the top half. So he has yet to finish in the bottom half this entire year, which is really good for him because 1, no strikes, 2, he's winning a lot of games. He's only lost 1 game all season. And 2 of those weeks, Mike has been the highest scorer. So honestly, Mike's been doing an absolutely great job with his team. He had 1 week where he stumbled, but other than that, doing a great job sitting atop the Eliminator at this time. Now, so that's it for the Eliminator. Now we're going to jump into Roto World, which is something I think I'm gonna try to trademark when I talk about our Roto scoring. I've never heard of Roto World being used anywhere else, so I think this is the one spot it's ever been used. Pretty easy. I'm just gonna go get a copyright for it or a trademark or whatever it is. I did intellectual property law in law school. I should know it's trademark, not copyright, but I'm dumb. Anyways, so jumping into Roto World, as I said, I have not updated for week 4, so these will be different. Like Dave M might have jumped Tyler. I don't know who Tyler had last week. And whoever started Tom Brady is definitely going to fall in the rankings for quarterback, but we'll worry about all that later. So let's just take a look at how things are going on as of last week, and it is Tyler at number 1 in the quarterback rankings, putting up over 30 points a week. That will happen when you have I think he's just the current best quarterback, Patty Mahomes. But Dave M's giving a run for the money with Lamar Jackson, pulling all this stuff off the top of my head. And those two are both locked at the top of the quarterback battle. It'll be interesting to see how Tyler does now that he has a different quarterback. And he doesn't have the ability to just lock in basically at least 10 points for the rest of the from the quarterback position. Because who knows what could happen with Rusty Wilson. Moving over to running back, Mike with his absolutely insane set of running backs. And by insane set, I mean insane running back of CMC. As you can see, week 2, CMC had a bad week, and so did Mike in the running back points. But that doesn't matter. He's still an absolute beast. James, he actually does have an insane tandem with Zeke and Cooks. or Dalvin Cook rather. So yeah, he is right there behind him, and then Dave M and Tyler round out the in the ballpark area. Moving on to wide receivers, Jerry off the back of Julio Jones, who's been looking absolutely spectacular this season. He is sitting up at the top of that, with Nick being the only person really even in the same ballpark. But then again, wide receivers are a very volatile position, so it'll be interesting to see how that's going to keep up over the course of the season. If people are going to have down weeks or people are going to have spike weeks, see how that ends up working out for that. And then at tight end, we have Sean at number 1. I don't know who his tight ends are, but apparently they've been pretty good for at least 2 weeks. And then Doug, 8 points behind, which is a lot for tight end because there's only one position, but it is something that can definitely be made up in a single week and may have already been made up. Moving over to the defense, we have Sean again atop the list at defensive line, absolutely killing it, and Doug again making an appearance near the top. But Sean definitely really pulling away at defensive line, already 11 points ahead of everybody else. And then linebacker, a lot closer with Matt M, Matt S, and Mark, the 3Ms. 3M is probably something else I might want to copyright if it becomes like a thing that I keep talking about with like the 3 dudes whose name starts with the letter M. Especially because we don't have anybody else who starts with the letter M, so that might be interesting too, because we only have the 3Ms. Anyways, we have the 2 Matts and me. We're just kind of hanging out near the top of that. With and again, because it's only one position, once you start looking at double-digit points, that starts to be like, all right, this is getting a little bit far ahead. So that's where we have Doug and Mike and all of them behind that. And then finishing up the defense at defensive back, we have a really tight battle between Matt S. and Malcolm, with Mike, Jerry, and Sean and Doug all locked in for that next for the next 4 positions, with 3 of them being within a quarter of a point. So that's really, really close. And then poor Tyler just sitting at the bottom, 34 points back. That's going to be tough to make up, but keep fighting, Tyler. You can grab some points there if you can. And then speaking of bad luck, over in the kicker department, somehow the guy who hates kickers rages against them constantly, thinks they shouldn't be in the league. I'm tied for first for kickers, so that's freaking crazy. I don't know how that ended up working out. I guess I just got really lucky or something. I don't know. And I'm in first place with that. And then down at the bottom, we have Dave M, who is positive after week 3. He got 0 in week 1, -1 in week 2. Finally actually has a positive number of points with 1 at the end of 3 weeks. Again, all of these are only for the first 3 weeks. I will be adding week 4 at some point tomorrow or the next day. So if you want, you can check out the spreadsheet where all of that stuff is live and just take a look and see like, oh, okay, so this is where I am at this point. If you want to see that stuff live and don't have to rely on me making these shows on Wednesday/Thursday. I think I want to move the show to Thursday consistently if I can. The issue is this week I have a engagement that I have to do on Thursday, and then last Thursday I had SpongeBob SquarePants the musical at Proctor's, and that was absolutely delightful. If you grew up with SpongeBob, I think it's a good time. If you didn't grow up with SpongeBob, probably not going to be your bag. But anyways, that is it for Roto World. As in a second, because we aren't done with it yet, we have to look at the standings at this time. And as of right now, we have Mike at number 1 with 63 points out of a possible a lot. I say a lot because it's 120, and I had to do the math. So, taking in about half of the points he could have. Sean is at number 2 with his 2 first-place finishes, with Tyler only 1 point behind Sean because just the way it ended up working out. I ended up getting the 15 points for the kicker, but if it's a tie, whoever's in, you get the same amount of points as the highest position. I'm not going to make it be like, oh, it's 13.5 points for first and second tying because it's the average. That's dumb. You get the full amount. So Tyler should have 15 there because that was a tie. And then moving on down, we have Nick at the very bottom because his team has been just not great, as we saw. Besides for that 1 week, which is probably where he got all his points from the wide receiver position. He's got 12 there as his clear highest. He doesn't have anything else giving him more than 6 points. And because of that, he is at 34 points, almost at half of the leader, Mike. So that is it for Road to World for Real. Let's take a look at what we got going on this week. In this week, we start off the action with myself in my first divisional matchup, as I alluded to earlier, with Jerry. Now, Jerry has a very good team. I also have a good team, but my team, I think, has a little bit more question marks in it right now. I mean, I could be stuck in a situation where Stefan Diggs is a piece of garbage for the rest of the season. I trade away 2 very good pieces, and hey, that's fine. I basically traded for him on the idea that I would be able to free up a roster spot for a trade that I then took earlier on in the day, and then didn't cancel it. So it was like, cool, great. I gave up extra value that I didn't want to give up, but that's how it works sometimes. So I'm just going to eat the L and be super happy with it if he ends up getting traded to New England, which I didn't even know was a thing that could happen when I'm offered the trade. So basically we got 2 teams. This is going to basically decide who's in first place in the division, because if I lose, I will have a worse record head-to-head against Jerry, as well as a worse record in the division as Jerry. So I will be moving to at least second place in the division, if not lower. The next one, we have the Champ versus I Am the Walrus. I mean, Mike's team's been absolutely on a tear, and I Am the Walrus, as we saw earlier, has already been eliminated. So I'm going to give this one up to Mike here. We have the undefeated Baker Maysean up against the newly liberated from Travis Kelce, Doug's The Farm Upstate. So it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up working out. Can Doug hand Sean his first loss in his tenure in the league? Or will he just end up falling like so many before him have? Who can tell? Then we have another divisional matchup with Mr. Salty versus Daniel. Inter-family rivalry here between James, the 3rd favorite child, and Malcolm, the most favorite child. I believe that's just lore at this point for the league, as Malcolm attempts to move a little bit closer to 500 and pull down the 2-2 James in hopes that he can get a little bit of help from Tyler down at Poo Poo, bringing Hoop There It Is down as well, so that the whole division can be tied at 2 and 3 below 500. It's canon, not lore. I think that's fair. That's fair. It's definitely it's at least canon. And then finally we have Tickle My Kittle versus the Average Jones. I think Tickle My Kittle's gonna win that one, as he's gonna beat up Nick, who just seems like he just has a bad team. He keeps making trades. Something's gonna catch on for him eventually. He's gonna make a couple good trades that actually pan out. I think he's just been having some bad luck. Keep up the good work, James. You're trying your best. But yeah, so that is it for week number 5 for the looking to the future for the matchups. Which means I get to pick my game of the week, and I don't like giving the game of the week to myself, but if you go back, there's not anybody else who is a 500 team or better, playing another 500 team or better, besides Doug versus Sean. And while that's a closer game for projections, as you can see, they're within like a third of a point. I think making it the divisional game, I think the divisional game is more important. So I'm gonna give it up to myself, and it's gonna be an interesting game. I'm gonna have to see if Fournette, if he's as good as advertised, or if he's gonna fall apart. Can Eifert be the 5th tight end in a row to finish as a top 3 tight end, solely on the back of playing against Arizona, because they don't know what a tight end is, so they just let the guy run around the field and catch footballs? I have to replace Melvin Ingram, probably. So that's going to be fun to figure out how I'm going to do that. And then I have, Shady. How's that going to work out? Is he hurt? They bring Williams back. How's that going to go? And then I have a bunch of people on my bench, like Samuel and just, other decent options that I have to figure out what the hell I'm doing with them. Can OBJ be good? Basically, if you look on the left side, you see a bunch of question marks that are really spooky. If you look on the right side, you see a bunch of people you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting out of all of these players. And it's good production, if not great production. So I think a lot of what I'm going to be doing for setting my lineup is going to come down to what happens tomorrow night as Chris Carson and Todd Gurley play each other, and I'm basically going to have to make a decision as to do I want to play a riskier lineup with higher upside, or do I want to go a little bit more conservative? Because if Carson and or Gurley pop off, that's going to be something I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to hope for a good, wet Seattle game, very defensive, not a lot of stuff going on, or a game where the Rams just blow out Seattle in the first half. Gurley gets like 50 and a touchdown to start off, and then just gets to sit back on the bench. Malcolm Brown does his thing for a little while. Chris Carson doesn't even get to see the field. I don't know. Maybe Chris Carson fumbles. I just got to hope. So anyways, that's it for the game of the week. And now for the hot take of the week. As everybody knows, not everyone knows this part. This was actually made last week when the meme was hot. Now it's a bit of a stale meme. I'm going to go with it anyways. My hot take of the week, Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he knows it. And what he's doing right now is he's just showing off. He's like, look, guys, yeah, I have one of the best wide receivers in a generation in OBJ. I don't have to use him. He went out and he was like, oh, man, I'm just going to crush this league without that. And guess what? Guess what? Now he needs to show it. Now he needs to really turn it up. And this weekend, he's going to throw to OBJ. OBJ is going to get like 10 for a $150 and 2 touchdowns. That's how it's going to go down. Is this a shitty hot take solely off the back of a meme that I don't actually believe in? That's up for you to decide. Did I literally say earlier on that Patty Mayonnaise is the literal best quarterback in the league, no exception? Maybe I did say those words, and now I'm just trying to meme on everybody. Who knows? No one can really know except for me. And I'm not telling because not even I know. All right, now we're in the home stretch. Time for the rankings. These are before some of the trades that went down today. So some people might be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but I think they're all basically in the same range. I don't think any of the trades today were really, really bad. I traded some depth players for somebody who could turn around and be good. Tyler traded Fournette and a bunch of bench players to get Travis Kelce, which is fine. I think he probably got the better end of that bargain because tight end is so good. But yeah, so that's up with that. And then finally we have the basically me doing a trade. Whatever, who cares? Into the rankings, we're at the C class, and in last place it's Nick. So this year, I decided to have a quote-unquote confidence rating, which is basically just me looking at the standard deviation for how you've done over the last 3 weeks, and that's going to be like the confidence rating that you're going to see here. So you're going to see Nick, last 3, his average was 129.5. That's number 6 in the league, but he has a very, very low confidence rating based on the fact that he had 2 that were strikes and 1 that was the best. So Nick, that's his team's buns, for lack of better terms. Yeah, does he have good players on his team? Yeah, I think he does. If you looked at this team before the draft, you'd be like, Carson Wentz, pretty good. Juju and Lockett, those guys are fine. Aaron Jones and Montgomery, yeah, those are guys that are good. Zach Ertz, solid top 3 tight end. And then, he's got some other good people. Did it work out? No. Yeah, another thing about Yahoo, makes it really just god-awful to take a screenshot of. For some reason, they decided that they wanted to prioritize these big freaking gaps here, and then making it like, oh, let's just have this giant ass thing here that says like, oh, look at all these stats. That's cool. Show me the stats, but you don't have to make it freaking all this space turned up. So I can't. It's a mess. It's a mess. Anyways, so his starters are Wentz, Juju, Lockett, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Ertz, and Juice Landry. It's Not great. It hasn't been doing that great, and I think I know why. Um, for one, I mean Carson Wentz has been fine. He's got almost 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns over the course of 4 games. That's fine. You're getting, I mean, he is getting sub 250 yards, which isn't great. That's sub 3 touchdowns a game. He's only a little over two. But he can turn it around. Maybe he's had some bad matchups, and he does get the Jets this week. Juju's got the bad quarterback. The Giants have, or not the Giants, Green Bay has just had absolutely an abysmal schedule to start the season. So they've just been absolutely bottled up. But yeah, this is one of those things where I look at Nick's team and I say, hey, Nick, you could have a really good team in 3 weeks, or you could be absolute garbage forever if your team just doesn't turn around. And my God, something smells horrible in my room right now. Oh my God. A skunk must have just exploded into a mist of its own ass outside of my bedroom window. Holy crap. Oh. Oh, please let my dogs be inside. Oh, maybe you know what? You know what it is? Maybe just a whiff of Nick's team just came out of the computer at me. Hold on, I just need to double check, make sure my dogs aren't outside getting sprayed by a skunk. All right. Well, I'm gonna move on under the assumption that they're fine, considering my fiance isn't currently screaming at me that the dogs have been skunked. So yeah, I'm just gonna move on. So yeah, Nick's team is so bad it made my room smell like a dead skunk asshole. Moving on to number 11, and number 11 is actually Matt M. Because while he does have the lowest average of the last 3 weeks, and he does have a very high consistency rating. Oh, heck, what did I just call it? I literally just had a cool name for it. Confidence rating in that amount. He actually has a lot of really good things going for him. He has the running backs tied up in Denver, so if Royce ends up taking over, or one of Lindsay or Royce end up getting hurt, he's got that locked down. He's got Mike Williams when he gets back. He has a lot of number 2 wide receivers or number 3 wide receivers, which is going to be very, very good to have in the event that somebody gets hurt. He has got DJ Chark now, as well as Wayne Gallman. He's got Saquon on the bench, and if Saquon is back in 4 weeks, that's going to be an absolute steal of a trade that he made. So he's going to be in a great position just to throw Saquon into that running back slot. So he'll have 3 really good running backs between David Johnson, Saquon, and whatever running back in Denver is doing really well at the time. Michael Thomas is going to be really good eventually again, because again, Drew Brees will come back this season. He's going to play, and he's old, so he's going to get back a little slower, but at the same time, I think he can do some really good stuff out there. And then he's got, as I said, DJ Chark now. And then if you just look, like, if Tyreek Hill continues to be hurt, if Lockett ends up getting hurt, if Keenan Allen ends up getting hurt, if Marlon Mack is hurt for an extended period of time, if one of the 2 people in Atlanta get hurt, like, he's got some really good depth at wide receiver that can end up working its way into that number 2 slot. But in the meantime, he still has DJ Chark, who is averaging just shy of 1 touchdown per game and has already put up 300 yards in just his first 4 games in his career. So he's got a really good trajectory that he could go on, but at the same time, I gotta see it in a game. I gotta see his players actually perform and do the things that they are able to do. And if I see him beginning to get some really good point scores, he will definitely begin to rocket up after just a week or two. But for now, I have to lock him in at number 11, despite having some very good players on his team. And that's it for the bottom two. They're just buns. So right cheek and left cheek, I'll call them. So they're going to sit down at the very bottom. And now we go up to the B class, which are the teams that are fine. And we have Jerry, who is at 9th with a medium-high confidence rating. And, it's mostly on the back of his wide receivers. He's got Julio. He's got Amari Cooper. Those guys are just absolutely fantastic this year. Having them both on the same team, both averaging a touchdown per game, both putting up huge numbers. I just love seeing that from him. So he's got that going on as his anchor. And then on top of that, he's got Chris Carson and Todd Gurley now. And then a ton of players that can rotate into that flex spot, especially if one of Peyton Barber or Ronald Jones get hurt. Then you don't have to worry about who's going to get the hot hand on any given week because he's just going to be able to play whoever is there, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. But you have to remember, the team still sucks. Why does the team suck? Well, it's a number of things. Number one, he's in my division. Number two, he plays me this week. If you play against me, that means your team is inherently sucky by comparison to my team. So that is one of the reasons he is at number 10. The third reason is he has a lot of things that just kind of make me go, oh. So while I love Chris Carson and Todd Gurley as a combo for running backs, neither of them are getting a ton of touches, and neither of them are confirmed to be the guy for the rest of the season. Now, Todd Gurley, he could go out and he could be Todd Gurley for the first 10 weeks of the season. But what's going to happen week 11, 12, 13, 14? His knee starts acting up again. Suddenly, dude is getting replaced. He's losing touches. He's only seeing the ball 10 times a game. He can't get into a rhythm. And suddenly, he's not really worth playing as a starter. We saw this last season in our playoffs and then saw it again in the actual playoffs. Imagine who would have been the Super Bowl champions last year if Todd Gurley had his knee at 100%. I think you could probably think, they probably would have done a much better job than with C.J. Anderson in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Now, you also have that same issue with Chris Carson. This is a guy who has been having a bit of a fumbling problem this season. He has already lost 3 fumbles over the course of this season. That is too many fumbles to have lost when you've only played 4 games. Now, has he done good things? Yes, he has 67 rushing attempts already over the course of those 4 games. Add that up with his 15 targets, he's getting over 20 looks per game, and he's putting up about 100 yards from scrimmage every game with half a touchdown. Those are good numbers, and they are going to get even better because what Seattle wants to do later on in the season is I think they're going to want to just lean on that run game, really try to grind it out, and then have Russell Wilson go crazy at the end of the game if he has to. And I don't know if Chris Carson's the guy for that. I think you're going to see more and more Rashad Penny now that he's getting healthier, now that Chris Carson has already fumbled as many times as he have, and I think his value is going to begin to plummet. Same thing with people like James White and Jones and Barber. Like, those 3 are all in situations where you don't know in a given week who's going to get the touches. Is this going to be the James White week, or is it going to be the Rex Burkhead week? Is it going to be the Barber week, or is it going to be the Jones week? So while Jerry has a lot of good players, he also has a lot of question marks. Like Greg Olson's 1 billion years old. He could easily get his foot stepped on, and suddenly he's out for the rest of the season. Like, I'm not trying to talk down on Jerry's team by any stretch. He has a lot of very good players. He's done a great job managing the team, and he's also had some bad luck with people like Cam Newton and stuff like that. But at the same time, he's gotta just figure his life out and hope for the best on this. So good luck to you, Jerry, but your team's got a lot of issues on it. Speaking of teams with a lot of issues on it, we have Doug. Now, Doug, mind you, no longer has Travis Kelce. He now has Disley and Kerryon Johnson, which apparently I could have just traded Doug in order to get Travis Kelce, and I would have loved to have done if I had known about it, but that's the breaks. Tyler's the better salesman than me. He made it work. Good for him. It's just Tyler did a better job than I did today. So But looking at this team, my big issue with it is you have a lot of players that are good in theory. So, Aaron Rodgers, good in theory, has not been performing very well this season. Yes, he has over 1,000 yards over the course of 4 games. We got to remember that's over the course of 4 games. He hasn't been averaging 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns a game. He's only been averaging a little over. He's only been averaging 1.5 touchdowns per game, and he has 3 turnovers already. So that's cutting into his production a lot, and only 53 yards rushing. He's not, the type of guy to scramble a ton, but he does have wheels, so that's a little bit worrisome. Thielen, he had a couple good games, but he's also been pretty buns the rest of the time. Julian Edelman, that's a guy who could get hurt. He has a injury history, and he also is playing on a team with a very crowded wide receiver core that could get even more crowded if they add Stephon Diggs. And then you have people like James Conner, who has been hurt, and then maybe somebody's going to be cutting into his workload a little bit. Williams, who the heck knows what's going to happen with that? I'll tell you what's going to happen with it. He's not going to be the person in that position anymore. It's going to be Carry-On. So I guess he's fine at running back. Dissly, if they end up switching over to a run-first team, then, of course, Dissly's not going to be there or to put up the big numbers for you, but he could be probably reasonable. I feel like that connection's really been evolving over the course of the season, and it's one of the reasons why I liked trading for Dissly or picking him up off waivers, whatever I did. I was a little upset to part with him, but Tyler may be a great offer for somebody I really, really like. Now he's got to hope that Fournette actually carries through. And then he's got Larry the Legend. Can't really hurt that in the flex. But then who does he have on his bench? Jamal Williams? Sure. I mean, if something happens to Jones, then he's got him. But if something bad happens to Jones and you're playing Jamal Williams instead, doesn't that hurt Aaron Rodgers as well? Because people aren't going to have to commit to the running game. They can commit to the passing game instead because Williams just isn't as good. Then you got people like Deshaun Hamilton and Nyheim Hines, Deebo Samuel, Tariq Cohen. Like, these are all people who have not been great. And then you have DJ Moore, who is probably your, just the best bench player you have. Actually put up more points this season so far than Adam Thielen. But you have the issue of who is the quarterback? Is he going to get Cam back? At what point is he going to get Cam back? And is Cam going to be Cam when he gets back? I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't think you can predict that. So that's why I really don't like Doug's team. And on top of that, his last 3, he's got high confidence, and he's been ranked 8th. Not even averaging 130 points per game. So yeah. And then another issue is his kicker's on IR. I don't think that really matters. I mean, it's just whatever. And the dude just has a giant hard-on for Devin Funchess, so that guy's never leaving his IR slot. He's just going to sit there for the whole season. I don't know what the deal is, but he just loves him. So yeah, so that's what you got going on with Doug. A lot of really good, talented players, but are they going to be good? Now, Adam Thielen, he could be great. Who knows what could happen? Give him a couple weeks. Adam Thielen could end up recovering and being a very good player again. Maybe he just had a couple bad matchups. Maybe he just wasn't just feeling it those games. Maybe the game script just got out of hand because Cook was just so good. And maybe they decide, well, we're making a playoff run this season. Maybe we want to hold Cook back a little bit. So yeah, so that's all what's going on with Doug. At number 8, we have Matt S. He has a lower confidence level, so I moved him up to number 8 ahead of Doug. And this is another guy who just has a lot of bad luck that's happened so far this season. Coleman is hurt, Drew Brees is hurt, but he's found some bright spots on his team. Like Austin Hooper's been really good. Mike Evans is finally coming on. Apparently he had a stomach bug for the first 2 weeks, so he wasn't healthy and wasn't well hydrated and stuff like that. So he was spending a lot of time on the field just kind of dogging it because he just couldn't go full on. And now that he can go full on, you saw what he did the last 2 weeks. And then this weekend against New Orleans in the Dome on that speedy turf, I think Mike Evans is going to have another bonkers week. So yeah, Matt S., if you want to trade me Mike Evans, I will be more than willing to listen to your offers. But in the meantime, dude's got a lot of other great people. He's got Le'Veon Bell, who no longer has a bye for the rest of the season, so that's somebody he can just lock into that RB1 slot. But he also has people on the other side who are having issues. So, for example, he's got Sony Michel, who is in that situation with New England, like I mentioned before. Is he going to be good? Is this going to be his week? How is that all going to work out? But yeah, so I think he's got a pretty decent team. He's got a lot of good talent. He's got a series of pretty decent quarterbacks that he can rotate through until Breeze gets back. He's got people like Malcolm Brown and Tevin Coleman, um, Chris Thompson, Auden Tate, people who, if they end up popping off, you can easily just throw into your offense, even John Brown. Um, so yeah, I think he should be doing some, maybe make some wheeling and dealing, try to trade up, find somebody who has a giant gaping hole in their roster and be like, hey, I'll send you two people who can fill that hole for somebody who's a little bit better than one of them. Something like that to make it seem a little bit better. Just being one or two more really, really good guys. But he already has people like Bell and Evans, and if Woods ends up developing into a stud as well, his team's going to be fine, especially with Hooper playing as well as he is. Number 7, we have Dave. Dave's team is really high confidence, listed at 10th. He really is up here because I believe in his team. I think Kamara and Freeman are both going to start coming on. Kittle isn't going to sit down being bad, and he also just had his bye. So 10 points per game is fine, but I think he's going to be doing a lot better soon. And then he has people like he just has a lot of very good players on his team. He's one of those lineups that when you look at top to bottom, your only people who really jump out at the page is like Lamar Jackson, who's having a dominant year, and Alvin Kamara, who is. So I think he has a couple very, very dominant players, but at the same time, he has a lot of other underperforming players. But if everyone ends up getting up to their potential, especially with Kareem Hunt coming back at the end of the year, if he ends up doing that, I think he's going to have a much better team than it looks at right now, than his record shows, and than his points per game shows. So that brings us up to the A class, our top 6 teams, and we're going to start off with James. James was number 2 weeks ago. He's got a very low confidence level because his team's been kind of all over the place this season. But, I think he has the makings of a very good team. He's got, Minshew that he can throw in the event that Goff continues to not be great. I mean, he wasn't great last year. He has a negative turnover to touchdown ratio and stuff like that. But I think he has some really good stuff that he can build on in a lot of other positions. And the best part about it is if he gets into a situation where it's in an emergency, he has the in case of emergency break glass of trading away Cook or Elliott for a actual king's ransom. He could probably ask for any low-end wide receiver 1 and low-end running back 1 and get it for those two guys. They are just so good this year, especially Cook with the way that they're playing him. Like, he can name his price and he can get it. So in the event of an emergency, like A.J. Brown, Galladay, Ridley, they all get on a bus and they say, hey, let's make a band instead of doing what we're doing in the football time. I just got to wrap it up a little quick. My throat's beginning to really, really hurt. That's why I'm talking really fast. So I think James is, he's got a good team. I don't want to trust the numbers on it. That's why he's up in this tier and not in the tier below. But I like his team. I like where it's headed. And he's got those 2 stud running backs, so I really can't convince myself to put him any lower. At number 5, we got Malcolm. Now, did Tom Brady have a terrible week last week? Yes. Does he have another quarterback on the roster? No. But Tom Brady plays against Washington, and that's going to be just insane. I think he's going to put up great numbers between him and Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon, again, now that he doesn't have AB to take away issues and stuff like that, I think he's going to be in a much better position. And he also has pretty good running backs with Nick Chubb really breaking out over the last few weeks, ruining OBJ. And he also has Josh Jacobs, who I think has the talent to be really good. Just maybe it's a usage thing. I don't know what the problem is, but hopefully that can get resolved. And best of all, he has Golden Tate coming back for the Golden God himself of Daniels, or Daniel Jones, not Joan Daniels, Daniel Jones. I think he's in a really good position, and this is a team that can really blossom over the next few weeks, especially with some of the players he has, and he's just like one thing away from really shooting up the rankings here. He just needs to fill in one more person to be just a little bit higher, another tier above. and he'll be in a really good position. And also, he really needs to go out and find himself a quarterback. Um, but I do love the fact that he got Mark Andrews. That was a really good job on his part, scouting that one out. And that brings us to the S class, the top four, the best of the best, the best of the bunch. And we're going to start off at number 4 with Tyler, who, honestly, at this point, I think you should move. He is potentially able to get moved up into maybe 2 or 1. I understand 4 is really tough for you to see right now, Tyler, but this was based on before that trade. We consolidated some of your power. It's just tough to move you up to number 1 with a bullet when you are starting 2 LAC running backs. I think they're both good, but I don't think they're both worth just absolutely windmill slamming into the lineup every single week. But you do have other players you can put in instead, like Sterling Shepard and Rex Burkhead in the event of an emergency or in the event that you need it. But you do have 2 players, both of which are going to be very, very good for several weeks. But yeah, everything else top to bottom, you have just absolutely great stuff. Your depth could be better, but at the same time, that's fine, whatever. Depth is depth. You can make it work. At number 3, we have myself. If Davante Adams is not hurt for very long, I get A.J. Green back, and A.J. Green ends up coming back and being the A.J. Green we all know. Then my team will look like Ryan at number 1. Then I got OBJ, Adams, and Green as my wide receivers in my flex. I'll have Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette as my running backs. And then my tight end will be Hockenson. He looked really good for 1 game, not great for 2 games, and then really good for a game, and then he got hurt. So I'm not sure how they're planning on using him in the future, but I'm willing to bet on him or Eifert being able to be streamed back and forth. Or I can always just jump entirely on the stream and just pick whatever tight end is playing against Arizona every given week. Because, as I said before, the number 1 tight end on a team playing against Arizona has been a top 3 tight end every week this season. At number 2, we have Sean. He was number 1 before. Now I had to just back him off a little bit because, again, as I said before, Mike has just been super, super dominant. Just to look at his team really quick, I think Deshaun Watson is going to get better. He's going to improve. I don't know what his problem is right now, but it's going to get better. And then he has players like, Sanders, who has been surprisingly good. I don't know what happened to Flacco. Maybe he's having a resurgent year because he got kicked off his team. Godwin is the number 1 wide receiver in Tampa Bay. Also, the number 1 receiver in Tampa Bay is Mike Evans. I think they're both great, and they're in really good positions. And then he has 2 really, really good running backs in the event when they both get healthy, a stud tight end, and then a ton of people he can play at flex. I absolutely love his team, but I don't love it as much as Mike. When he went out and he got himself Patrick Mahomes, he made it so that he just has absolutely great talent across the board, especially when Tyreek Hill gets back, because then you'll have Mahomes to Hill, DeAndre Hopkins in there too, CMC, he'll have Ebron or whoever he wants to run into that tight end position. And then, yeah, you can throw in your flex Jameson Crowder, Breida, or Singletary, whoever is doing really good that week or has a good matchup. I think this is probably the best team out there right now. But unlike in years past, typically at this point, we're looking at the week 5 and stuff like that. We're looking at, 1 or 2 teams that we just look at and we go, oh my God, these guys are going to meet in the championship. Their teams are unstoppable. They have literally quarterback through flex, absolute freaking studs. Cannot be beat. We don't have that so far this year, and I love that. We have a lot more parity. I don't know if it's because of the way the league is set up, or if just the way the NFL is broken this year, but I think it's a very good situation for everybody involved. And so great job, everybody, this year. And with that, I have to say see you next week. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye.